You finally published your housing plan last week, long overdue. After all the anticipation, what you delivered was nothing more than old milk in new bottles. Nothing new on affordable home ownership, no clarity on what new powers the Land Development Agency will have, and no ambition on social housing. Just an open door for speculators and land hoarders. Worse again, you've abandoned annual targets for new home building. Could there be a more blatant admission of failure than that? And essentially, you've confessed to the locked-out generation that you have truly run out of ideas, simply telling them to hang in there, while removing the very tools needed to measure progress. It doesn't take a genius to understand why, because, Taoiseach, when you scrap metrics, you scrap accountability. Worst of all, your government have normalised the eviction of children at a time when more than 5,000 children are without a home, and this is a national disgrace. Taoiseach, your housing plan is a disgrace. People can see you've no real plan for housing. You're forming policy on the hoof, so it's no wonder that your policies don't work. Take your recent plans to rip up minimum apartment standards and gut planning rules less than a year after then Minister Darragh O'Brien passed what he called a comprehensive planning law. On a random Sunday last July, you leaked to the papers new plans to make homes smaller by drastically cutting planning standards. Now, there's nothing wrong, Taoiseach, with trying new things, and indeed each week the Labour Party and others urge you to change your housing policies, but not like this, because you tried this move before and it was a disaster then. Cast your mind back to 2018. Then Fine Gael Minister Owen Murphy introduced similar plans to reduce standards, and a regulatory mess ensued, indeed a mess that forced Minister Darragh O'Brien later to amend apartment design rules again. So why do you opt to repeat the mistakes of the past, and worse, to do more than merely repeating them? Because Minister Brown has introduced a wrong-headed change, or sought to do so, without the required strategic environmental assessment. Now, relaxing minimum housing standards wasn't in your manifesto in last year's election, nor in Fine Gael's, and no wonder. Because if it was, you'd have spent the election campaign explaining why people should look for a return to shoeboxes and grotty bedsits, and you'd have faced the same critique that you're getting now, like from the Irish Planning Institute. So instead you kept it quiet and ran on falsely inflated home building projections. Now, when you leaked those plans on a Sunday in July, your Cabinet agreed it by Tuesday, and councillors justifiably brought a legal challenge to your hasty change. You lashed out, you and the Taoiseach attacked me and our housing spokesperson, Deputy Conor Sheehan, and accused our party of weaponising the courts, because our councillor, Darren Moriarty, was one of the councillors involved. And then you backed down in the courts on Monday of this week, a dramatic climb down, a significant development showing no strategy is there. No strategy underlying this change, just an admission of failure. So, Taoiseach, do you admit and accept your housing policies are failing, your attempt to reduce apartment standards has failed,
Thank you, Deputy.
and your new housing plan is a further admission of failure?
I'm sorry, Deputy, please sit
down.
Resume your seat. Deputy, wait till the circus is over, Taoiseach.
Deputy, I have to say I reject 100% your false narrative on the government's position in housing, your vagueness about your own. I would sum up your housing policy and the members of your party's attitude to housing is whatever the government proposes, we oppose. And I think it's extraordinary. I think it's extraordinary that you did a big kind of opening critique of overall government policy, then zeroed in on apartment standards, and because your party is opposing that decision. That's all you can do. I mean, the bottom line is this, and you told an untruth there when you said that the government had no social housing targets. You know full well the housing plan is very clear that you did say that. You said we had no social housing plans. The housing plan says we'll deliver 12,000 new social homes. That's the plan every year over the lifetime of the plan. And we have significantly transformed the scale and pace of social housing delivery over the last 5 years. And that has to be acknowledged. And I've looked at your manifesto on housing. It is so vague as to be unbelievable. It's bereft of any depth or substance. You've put no flesh on the bone of any of your proposals. The housing plan has depth, has substance. So we've capitalised the LDA now, for example, Land Development Agency, to about 8.75 billion. We're talking about a 50 billion plan in terms of housing. Now, housing needs about the needs in terms of 50,000 houses a year. We'll need about 20 billion to be spent every year. The state will not be able to do 20 billion every year. The private sector has to be involved. And you have consistently been hostile to any private sector dimension to housing. And we say the state will continue with enormous sums of money allocated to housing and to infrastructure that will enable housing, water services, the grid. That's the fundamental big picture about housing. OK, you want to get back down to apartment guidelines? We wanted to close the viability gap. We do need more apartments built. We reduced the VAT in the budget. You just lazily and nice political sort of stuff, oh, it's a developer kind of stuff. It's not, that's not the reason. It's to narrow the viability gap that all the analysts have identified in terms of apartment building in cities. And we've done a number of other measures in terms of the reform of the rent pressure zones. You oppose that too, of course, because you just want to be popular all of the time. We're actually focused, since we came into government, on doing things around housing to get the rental market in line with the Housing Commission report, by the way, which called for reform of the rental market, which we followed through on in an evidence-based and informed way in terms of those who made recommendations to the Minister to come forward with proposals in relation to the rental sector. And, you know, I get the sense all of the time
Thank you,
that no matter what government proposes,
you can come back in, Deputy Bacik,
you will
to
oppose.
respond.
And we need different housing types, different apartment types for different cohorts of the population who require accommodation.
To respond.
Well, Taoiseach, I reject your misrepresentations of what I said. You are trying to construct a false narrative. Labour have always been constructive from opposition. Indeed, we supported the Land Development Agency, just as we support the tenant in situ scheme. And we, as you know, in our manifesto, we set out clear plans for housing to ramp up the Land Development Agency to deliver homes at scale and have a state-led approach. A state-led approach, of course, recognising a role for the private sector, but recognising also that the state must take on a much larger role in delivery of homes. Now, I notice you didn't mention the revised apartment standards. You didn't acknowledge that there was considerable disquiet expressed by the Irish Planning Institute in July when you sought to bring them forward. When you didn't acknowledge that the Irish Planning Institute said they were not convinced that the announced changes would achieve the bringing down of development costs or acceleration of housing delivery. Just as your misjudged VAT cut is based on no evidence that there will be any closure of the viability gap, nor indeed that there will be any increase in the building of apartments, or indeed any increase in the supply of homes that communities need. And you know this, Taoiseach. Your policies have failed.
Well, actually, no. I mean, people are saying the VAT will have an impact. That is the response from the market is quite clear, that it is a significant step in narrowing the viability gap to get more apartments built. And in terms of the Land Development Agency, you know, we gave it its legislative underpinning. We will further add to its role. And we have capitalised the LDA very significantly. And if you look at the mortgage drawdowns, for example, the percentage increase in terms of first-time buyer mortgage drawdown has increased significantly from about 23% in 2015 to about 35% today. So we are making progress. But the affordability, it continues to be an issue. We have growing population. But if we keep on opposing everything, and that's what you're doing, Deputy, look, come off it. You mentioned the Irish. Look, if we're to hang around, no disrespect to anybody, if we're to hang around waiting for this institute and that institute to get around to building houses, we'll be waiting a long time. There's been too much of that in this country. There's been too much of it. Because we need to build 50 to 60,000 per annum. We're not going to get there with your policies.
Deputy Holly Cairns. Thank you, Taoiseach. Deputy Holly Cairns.